never imagined I'd be writing this story, but here I am. And as I write, my hands tremble with the memories. My name is Jason, and it all started when I received a letter. The letter was old, its paper yellowed and torn at the edges, and it was addressed to me, but I didn't know the sender. The message was simple. Come to the mountains. The castle waits. You will find what you seek there. I didn't know what to make of it. The idea of a mysterious invitation, especially one that was so cryptic, intrigued me. But I'd heard stories. Everyone around here did. They talked about the abandoned castle in the mountains, a place no one dared to approach. Some said it was cursed. Others believed it was haunted. But for me, it was just a story. At least, that's what I thought before I decided to go. I packed a bag with essentials, a flashlight, a camera, and a few other things, hoping to document whatever I found. I didn't expect much. I thought I would go up, look around, and return home. Maybe with a good story to tell my friends. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to experience. The journey was long. The further I went, the colder it became, and the deeper into the mountains I ventured. The path narrowed, and the fog began to roll in. Every step I took felt like I was walking through a dream, and in a way, I was. A dream I would never wake up from. The sun was setting when I reached the castle. It stood there, towering over the valley, as if it had always been a part of the mountains. Its stone walls were covered in ivy, and the windows were dark, empty eyes staring down at me. I felt a chill crawl down my spine as I approached the castle's entrance. The heavy wooden doors creaked as I pushed them open. The air inside was thick with dust, and the silence was deafening. I could feel the weight of the place pressing down on me, like it was watching me, waiting for me to make the first move. I stepped inside, my flashlight illuminating the grand hall. The walls were adorned with faded portraits of people I couldn't recognize. The floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, as though no one had stepped here in centuries. But I knew better. Someone had been here. Someone or something. As I ventured deeper into the castle, the air grew colder. It wasn't just the temperature. It felt like something was stirring in the shadows, something ancient, something not meant to be disturbed. I couldn't explain it, but every corner I turned, every room I entered, felt wrong. The grand staircase led up to the second floor, and I climbed it slowly, carefully. My footsteps echoed in the stillness, as though the castle was alive, remembering the sounds of its past. I paused at the top of the stairs. There, in front of me, stood a door that seemed different from the others. It was old, yes, but there was something about it. The door was heavy, and when I pushed it open, it revealed a dark, narrow hallway. The smell of decay was stronger here. I walked down the hallway, drawn by something I couldn't explain. My flashlight flickered as if struggling to keep up with the increasing darkness. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Something was pulling me forward, and I had to know what it was. The hallway ended at a door that looked as though it hadn't been touched in years. When I pushed it open, I found myself in a large room. The walls were lined with bookshelves, each one filled with dusty old tomes. In the center of the room stood a large ornate mirror, its surface covered in a layer of grime. I approached it cautiously, my reflection distorted by the filth on the glass. But as I stared into the mirror, something strange happened. I saw a figure behind me, a shadow moving slowly toward me. My heart raced. I spun around, but no one was there, just the empty, cold room. But I knew I wasn't alone. As I turned to leave the room, I heard a faint whisper. It was so quiet at first, barely a sound, but it grew louder with each passing second. The whispers echoed through the walls, as though the castle itself was speaking to me. Leave. The voice was soft, pleading, but also angry. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The temperature in the room dropped, and I could see my breath misting in the air. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. "Leave, or it will find you." I backed away from the mirror, my eyes darting around the room. But before I could make it to the door, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I spun around, but once again, no one was there. I couldn't explain it. The fear, the cold, the whispers. It felt like the castle was alive, aware of my presence. It was trying to warn me, or perhaps it was trying to trap me. As I stumbled out of the room, I heard the door slam shut behind me. The entire castle seemed to shift, as if it was reacting to my every move. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was it a ghost? Was it all in my head? Or was there something far more sinister at work here? I ran through the castle, desperate to leave, but the hallways twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of the building. The whispers were everywhere now, echoing in my ears, getting louder and louder. Leave now, or never leave at all. I finally found the main exit, but it wouldn't open. The door was locked, sealed shut as though it had never been intended to open again. Panic set in. I was trapped. There was no way out. And then I heard a voice, a real voice, not the whispers, but a deep guttural growl from the shadows, the kind of sound you never forget. "You shouldn't have come," it said. I turned, and there it was. A figure standing in the doorway of the room I had just fled. It was tall, dressed in tattered robes, with eyes that gleamed red in the darkness. I didn't wait. I ran, but I could feel it behind me, getting closer. The figure was chasing me. The castle was alive, and it wasn't letting me go. But then, as I reached the stairs, the whispers stopped. The figure vanished. The door opened. I didn't look back. I ran out into the night, my heart still racing, the cold mountain air burning my lungs. I didn't stop until I was miles away from the castle. But even now, as I sit here writing this, I can still feel it. The presence of the castle, watching me from the distance, waiting. The door may have opened for me once, but I know it will close again. And one day, it will call me back, to finish what I started. It's been weeks since I left the castle. I told myself I was done with it, that I would never go back. But the nightmares wouldn't stop. Every night I would dream of the castle, of the dark figure and the whispers that seemed to come from everywhere. The worst part? They followed me. Even when I was awake, I could feel the presence of something watching me, something waiting. I couldn't escape it. It was as if the castle had imprinted itself on my very soul, and now it was calling me back. I tried to ignore it. I went about my life, but the fear always lingered. Every sound, every creak in the floorboards at night sent a chill down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only a matter of time before I would have to return to that cursed place. Then one night, the letter came again. The same torn yellowed paper, the same cryptic message. "You know the way. The castle is waiting. Your fate is tied to it." That was it. I couldn't run from it any longer. I knew what I had to do. I packed my things, the same flashlight, camera, and a journal this time to document everything. I didn't know what I'd find, but I couldn't let fear control me anymore. I had to face whatever was haunting me. The journey to the castle felt different this time. The air was thicker, the fog denser. It felt like the mountain itself was closing in on me, pushing me back, but I kept going. I had to. When I finally saw the silhouette of the castle towering above the fog, I felt a rush of dread. My heartbeat quickened, and my palms began to sweat. But I couldn't turn back. I had to know the truth. I approached the front door, and to my surprise, it was already open. The heavy wooden doors that had once creaked shut were wide open, as if inviting me in. I hesitated for a moment, but then, without another thought, I stepped inside. The inside of the castle was even darker than before. The air was suffocating, and I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on me. It was as though the walls were alive, their stone faces watching my every move. I walked down the familiar hallways, but this time, something was different. The silence wasn't as comforting as it had been before. It felt unnatural, oppressive. It was as if the castle itself knew I was here, and it wasn't happy about it. I made my way up the grand staircase again, but this time, the shadows seemed to shift as I passed. I felt a cold hand brush my shoulder, but when I turned, there was nothing there. The whispers returned, louder this time, almost like voices from the past calling out to me, urging me forward. When I reached the room with the mirror, I stopped. The mirror was still there, untouched, reflecting my image. But when I looked closer, something was wrong. My reflection wasn't me. It was the figure, the one I had seen before. The figure in the tattered robes with the glowing red eyes. I stumbled back, my heart racing. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. "You cannot escape," a voice growled, echoing through the room. I backed away from the mirror, feeling the walls close in on me. I had made a mistake. I had come back to finish something I shouldn't have started. The whispers were growing louder, and the room seemed to spin. And then I saw it. In the corner of the room, hidden in the shadows, was a trap door, barely noticeable. I didn't think. I ran for it. The trap door creaked open, and I descended into the darkness below. The air was thick with dust, and I could barely breathe. But something drew me down deeper, a feeling that I was getting closer to the truth. I found myself in a hidden chamber, far beneath the castle. The walls were covered in strange symbols and ancient markings, ones I didn't recognize. It was cold here, colder than anywhere else in the castle. And then I saw it. A stone altar in the center of the room, with a single candle flickering atop it. I approached it cautiously. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, but I couldn't stop. The truth was right in front of me. As I examined the altar, I noticed a small book lying on it. The cover was cracked and worn, but the pages inside were still intact. I opened it and began to read. The book described the history of the castle, a history filled with dark rituals and forbidden magic. It was built by an ancient cult, one that had attempted to summon something from beyond this world. They had succeeded, but at a terrible cost. The entity they had summoned was bound to the castle, trapped in its walls, waiting for the right person to release it. I was that person. The moment I stepped foot in the castle, I had unwittingly triggered the curse. And now, the entity was free. It was waiting for me to complete the ritual that would set it loose on the world. I couldn't escape. There was no way out. The only choice I had was to face the entity, or become its vessel. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. The air grew colder, and the shadows in the room began to move. I could feel the presence of something ancient, something powerful, closing in on me. "You were chosen," the voice said, low and guttural. "Now, you will become one with the darkness." I backed away from the altar, my heart pounding in my chest. The room seemed to spin as I tried to think. There had to be a way out. I couldn't be its vessel. I wouldn't be. But as I turned to flee, the trapdoor slammed shut behind me, trapping me in the chamber. The shadows grew darker, swallowing the light of the candle. The figure in the tattered robes appeared before me, its red eyes glowing with fury. "You cannot escape your fate." And then, everything went black. I don't know how much time had passed. When I finally opened my eyes, The world around me was different. It wasn't the dark stone chamber I had last seen. It was brighter. The air felt lighter, warmer, as if I had been transported to another realm. I sat up, dizzy and disoriented, and looked around. I was no longer inside the castle. The shadows that had once haunted me were gone, but there was something wrong. A strange stillness hung in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I stood up, my legs shaking, and found myself on a narrow path leading through a dense forest. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches intertwining like hands reaching for the sky. The sky above was an unnatural shade of crimson, the sun hovering like a pale orb on the horizon. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I remembered the book, the ritual, the entity, the truth I had learned down in the hidden chamber. My heart raced as I realized what had happened. I hadn't escaped. I was still in the castle, or at least in some twisted version of it. I had crossed over into whatever dark dimension the entity had been waiting for. I turned around, trying to find a way back to the castle, but the forest stretched endlessly in every direction. There was no path leading back to the altar, no sign of the castle. The only sound was the rustling of the wind in the trees. "You're not alone," the voice from the shadows whispered, faint but clear. "The castle is everywhere. 'Tis you, and you are it." I froze. The voice was everywhere, inside my head, in the very air around me. It felt like the castle had become a part of me, and now it was with me in this place, in this nightmare. I stumbled forward, the ground beneath my feet uneven, as I tried to make sense of what was happening. I couldn't escape. There was no escape. The entity had already marked me, and now I was trapped in its world, a world I couldn't comprehend. Suddenly a figure appeared in the distance, a shadow moving swiftly through the trees. I couldn't make out its features, but I could feel its gaze on me. It was coming closer. I tried to move faster, but my body felt heavy, as if the forest itself was pulling me back, holding me in place. The figure drew closer, and I could see it now. A tall, thin figure draped in black robes, its face hidden beneath a hood. The figure stopped in front of me, and I could feel the temperature drop even further. A hand reached out from under the robes, and a voice, not the same as the one I had heard before, but just as chilling, spoke. "You think you can outrun your destiny? The castle never lets go. It's part of you now, forever." I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my throat. My chest felt tight, my vision blurred. The figure stepped forward, and I could feel its presence overwhelming me, filling my mind with images of the castle, of the entity. In that moment, I realized the truth. The castle wasn't just a place. It was a curse, a prison, and I had become its prisoner. The figure's cold, unfeeling eyes stared at me, and I felt my knees give out beneath me. I collapsed to the ground, my hands trembling. The figure didn't move, but its presence weighed on me like an anchor pulling me deeper into the darkness. "You were meant for this," the figure whispered, almost lovingly. "Your fate was sealed the moment you stepped into the castle." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "No, I didn't choose this. I didn't want this." The figure tilted its head almost as if amused. "You had no choice. The castle chooses, not you." I felt my heart race, my mind spinning. This couldn't be happening. The castle had been a nightmare, but it had been real. The figure before me was real, but I couldn't give up. I couldn't let it win. I stood up, feeling a surge of strength I didn't know I had. "I won't be your prisoner. I won't become part of this curse." The figure's expression remained unchanged, but I saw a flicker of something, a hint of annoyance. "You think you can fight it? You think you can change your fate?" I didn't answer. I couldn't afford to doubt myself now. I turned and began to run, the sound of the figure's footsteps echoing behind me. I pushed through the forest, stumbling, falling, but never looking back. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stop. If I stopped, if I gave in, the castle would claim me. I had to keep moving. Suddenly, the forest opened up into a clearing. At the far end, there was something, a structure. It looked like a tower, tall and imposing, with a dark, swirling energy surrounding it. It was the castle, or something like it. I had to reach it. I had to find a way to end this. But before I could move forward, the ground beneath me cracked open and I felt myself falling. I fell, faster and faster, until everything around me went dark. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It was as if I had fallen into an endless void, a place without time or space. And then, I heard it again. The whispers. They surrounded me, whispering my name, urging me to surrender. "You cannot escape," they said. "You belong to the castle now." But in the darkness, something else stirred. A distant, haunting scream echoed in the void, a cry for help, desperate and full of terror. And I realized then, I wasn't the only one trapped here. The scream echoed through the darkness, reverberating in my skull. It wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus of them. Whispers, cries, sobs, all merging into a single haunting sound. Each voice felt familiar, like it belonged to someone who had once walked the same path as me, someone who had once tried to escape the castle, only to fail. I didn't know where I was, but I could feel the weight of the voices pressing in on me. They were all around, yet I couldn't see anything. The void stretched infinitely, and the only sound was that ever-present wail of torment. I tried to scream, but my throat felt dry, my voice lost in the suffocating emptiness. The more I tried to fight, the heavier the darkness became. The ground beneath me seemed to shift, and the air turned cold, the temperature plummeting to a bone-chilling level. And then, just as I thought I couldn't endure the weight of it any longer, I felt something pulling me, a force stronger than my own will tugging at my soul. I didn't want to go, but my body betrayed me, and I felt myself being dragged through the void. I tried to hold on, but it was useless. The darkness swallowed me whole. Suddenly the emptiness disappeared. I gasped for breath, the air thick and heavy, but at least it wasn't cold. My eyes snapped open, and I found myself lying on a cold stone floor, my body aching from the fall. The world around me was dim, shrouded in shadows. I was back in the castle, but it was different. The walls were cracked, the floor littered with dust, and everything was covered in a thin layer of mildew. The air smelled stale, like something had died long ago. I slowly got to my feet, looking around. The whispers were gone, but the feeling of being watched remained. The castle, or whatever this place was now, felt like a living thing. It pulsed with an unnatural energy, and I could hear faint scratching noises from somewhere in the dark. I tried to steady myself, but my knees felt weak, my heart still pounding from the fall. I couldn't make sense of anything anymore. The castle seemed to stretch on forever, its hallways twisting in ways they shouldn't, leading me to rooms I'd never seen before, yet they felt strangely familiar. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the castle, I passed by a series of portraits, their faces obscured by time and decay. But one portrait stopped me cold. It was a portrait of a man, dressed in the same robes I had seen in my visions. His eyes, though painted, seemed to follow me as I moved past. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It was as though I knew him, but I couldn't place why. Suddenly a voice echoed through the chamber, cold and sharp. "You should not be here." I spun around, but there was no one, only shadows. The voice didn't come from anywhere specific. It was everywhere, inside my mind, in my ears, in my very soul. Who? Who are you? I gasped. The voice was calm yet threatening. The question is not who I am, but who you are. You have chosen the wrong path, child. You've awakened what was meant to remain hidden. I stepped backward, my pulse quickening. What do you mean? The voice laughed, a hollow mocking sound. You are the last of them, the last of the chosen ones. You were brought here by fate. There is no escaping it. You belong to the castle now. I trembled, my hands shaking as I gripped the nearest wall for support. I had to understand. I had to know what was going on. The truth was somewhere within these walls. I could feel it. But I was terrified. I wasn't ready to face whatever awaited me. The castle, it's alive, isn't it? I whispered, the words leaving my lips before I even realized I had said them. Yes, the voice responded. And so are you. You are more than just a part of this place. You are bound to it, and soon you will join the others. Suddenly a figure emerged from the shadows, a shape moving in and out of focus. I couldn't make out the details at first, but then the figure stepped into the dim light, revealing itself to me. It was the man from the portrait, the one who had been watching me. He was tall, gaunt, his face pale and worn with age, yet his eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. His smile was thin, almost cruel, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like the very stones of the castle grinding together. You've come to free us, haven't you? He asked, his voice both sad and sinister. You think you can undo the curse, but it's too late. The castle claims all who enter, and now it claims you. The figure reached out, and in that instant the room around me seemed to close in. The walls grew closer, the shadows longer, until it felt like I was suffocating. The man's hand brushed my shoulder, and I froze. His touch was cold, colder than anything I had ever felt. You are mine now, he whispered in my ear. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The weight of the curse was upon me and I couldn't escape it. The shadows closed in, and I realized something terrible. I had become part of the castle. My fate was sealed. There was no leaving, no escape. I had been tricked. The castle had always known I would come back. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything was spinning out of control, the weight of the curse pressing down on me. The figure stood before me, his eyes glowing brighter now, and the whispers in the shadows grew louder. Accept your fate, he said. You are one of us now. The world around me seemed to warp and distort, like the very fabric of reality was bending, shifting, and breaking. The walls of the castle seemed to pulsate with energy, as if the castle itself was alive, alive with the souls of those who had come before me. I struggled to move, but it felt as though the shadows were binding me, holding me in place. I was trapped. And then I realized the whispers, the voices, the cries of torment. They weren't just echoes. They were the souls of the lost, the ones who had been consumed by the castle long ago. Now, they were a part of it. And so was I. I could feel my body changing, my mind warping. The castle had claimed me, and I had no choice but to surrender to it. The figure smiled and I felt a terrible chill in my bones. The castle never lets go, he whispered. And now, neither will you. Part 14, The Awakening. The coldness continued to spread throughout my body, seeping into my very soul. I felt as though I was being stretched thin, pulled apart by unseen forces. The shadows that surrounded me were no longer just shadows. They were alive. They were watching me, and I could hear them whispering, murmuring my name in twisted, mocking tones. Join us! Join us! They chanted, over and over again, as though they were beckoning me into their world. a world of eternal darkness, a prison from which there was no return. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. It was as though the very air in the castle had been sucked away, leaving me gasping for breath. My heart raced, thundering in my chest, but the sensation of suffocating dread only grew stronger. Every corner of the castle seemed to pulse with an unbearable energy, as though it was alive, breathing. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the voices, but the darkness only seemed to grow deeper. When I opened them again, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The figure, the one who had spoken to me earlier, was no longer standing in front of me. He was hovering in the air, his face twisted in a grotesque grin, his eyes glowing brighter than ever before. He was no longer just a man. He was something far worse, a creature of pure darkness, born from the very soul of the castle. "You can feel it, can't you?" he said, his voice no longer human, but a rasping, otherworldly sound. "The castle is calling to you, pulling you deeper into its grasp. You are already one of us, and soon you will see what we see. You will feel what we feel." I stumbled backward, but the air seemed to thicken, as though the very space around me was closing in. I tried to fight it, tried to move, but I was trapped. The weight of the castle's curse was too powerful, too overwhelming. It was as if the very walls of the place were crushing me from all sides. "Don't fight it," the figure continued, his voice now a low, mocking tone. "It's too late for that. You belong to the castle now, and there's nothing you can do to change that." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, but it didn't help. It didn't stop the growing sense of dread, the overwhelming darkness that was swallowing everything around me. I felt like I was falling, deeper and deeper into the castle's dark heart, where no light could ever reach. And then I saw them. They were everywhere. Shadows, figures that were barely human, their faces obscured by darkness, their eyes glowing with an unearthly light. They were watching me, their gazes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. They didn't speak, but I could hear their thoughts in my head, their desires, their hunger. "Join us. Be one of us." Their voices echoed in my mind. I felt my knees give out beneath me, and I collapsed onto the cold stone floor. The whispers in my head grew louder, their voices merging into a cacophony of madness. It was as if I could hear the very history of the castle, the screams of its past victims, all crashing together in a horrifying symphony. The figure floated closer, his smile widening, stretching unnaturally across his face. "It's time for you to understand," he whispered. Suddenly, everything went black. I woke up, or at least, I thought I did. The cold stone floor was gone, replaced by something soft beneath me. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, sluggish. I was no longer in the castle's halls. In fact, I wasn't sure where I was at all. The place I found myself in was strange, unfamiliar, yet oddly comforting. The room around me was dimly lit, the walls adorned with tapestries that seemed to move as if they were alive. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something else. Something I couldn't place, but it made my skin crawl. As I tried to move, I realized my arms and legs were shackled to the walls, the chains cold and unyielding. Panic surged through me, and I struggled against my restraints, but they didn't budge. "That won't help you," a voice said from the shadows. The voice was familiar, yet I couldn't place it at first. I turned toward the sound, my heart racing in my chest. There, standing in the corner of the room, was the figure. But now, he was different. He wasn't just a ghostly apparition or a twisted man. He was real, fully formed, standing in the light with a presence that made the room feel smaller, darker. "You've woken up," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing, as though he were speaking to a child. "You should be grateful." What is this? I demanded, panic rising in my throat. Where am I? You are in the heart of the castle, he replied, his smile widening. Where all who come are meant to stay. You've crossed the threshold. You can never leave. I tugged at my chains again, but they held firm. My body ached, and the weight of the situation was beginning to crush me. This place, it felt real. Too real. My mind raced with thoughts, but they all led to one conclusion. I was never meant to escape. I was never meant to leave. You said I was one of you, I whispered, fear creeping into my voice. The figure nodded slowly, his eyes glimmering. That's right. You're just like us now. You've crossed into our world, and soon you'll understand what it means to belong to the castle. His words were like a poison, sinking deep into my mind. I wanted to scream, to deny it, but I knew, deep down, there was no escape. The castle had claimed me. I don't belong here, I muttered, shaking my head. Oh, but you do, he said softly, stepping closer. You always have. Before I could respond, the shadows around the room began to shift. I could feel the air grow colder, the darkness pressing in from every direction. The whispers returned louder now, frantic. And then, I saw it. Something that made my blood run cold. A door. A door that hadn't been there before. It appeared out of nowhere, standing tall and ominous in the far corner of the room. Do you see it? The figure asked, his voice low and dangerous. The door is always there. The choice is yours. Step through it, or stay with us. The door beckoned me, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest. But I knew better. It was a trap, just like everything else in this cursed place. The figure laughed, his voice echoing off the stone walls. The choice is always an illusion, he said. You never had a choice. And with that, the door slowly began to close, fading into the shadows. I was trapped, forever. The room had grown eerily silent. I was still shackled to the walls, my body sore and bruised from my futile attempts to break free. The figure's presence loomed over me like a shadow, his eyes fixed on mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The whispers had quieted, but I could still feel them, faint and insistent, like a distant echo in my mind. The door is gone now, he said softly, his voice a cruel whisper. You missed your chance. I felt the panic surge within me again. The hope I had clung to just moments ago was now a distant memory. That door, it had been my only chance, and now it was gone, swallowed by the darkness. But even in my despair, I couldn't stop myself from asking, what do you want from me? The figure's smile never faltered. What do we want? We want you to see the truth about the castle, about us. I clenched my fists, pulling against the chains once more. I don't understand. Why me?